back. The proceedings are again in session.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Ms. Long, whenever you're ready. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Long.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Council, family members, and friends. My name is Tara Long, and I am Aaron Tuck's sister and closest living relative, blood or adopted. To my knowledge, I've tried to find Aaron's birth father, but I have been unsuccessful. I'm here because on April 18th, 2020, my brother Aaron, sister-in-law Jolene, and niece Emily were murdered. And after more than 2 years and millions of dollars spent on this inquiry, I have more questions than answers. Let me be clear, I don't want to be here. None of us want to be here. I'd rather be spending my time in Truro with my family, hearing about Emily's job as a welder. That's what she wanted to do. I want to be looking.
Sorry. Thank you, Ms. Hutman, and I apologize you didn't have a microphone for that, and we may just get you to repeat it, please.
Commissioners, it's unfortunate that I have to interrupt this presentation, but in our to uphold our obligations to our client and our representation of them, I must object to any connection or any suggestion of a relationship between Jolene Oliver or Emily Tuck and Ms. Long. It will be extremely traumatic and have very negative consequences on that family, our clients.
Thank you, Ms. Hutman. So, Ms. Long, I'm going to, as a self-represented litigant, presenter, I apologize, try to give you some guidance. We're here, just bear with me, we're here to hear what your experience has been as a participant. You've put on the record, it's already on the record, why you are a participant. So I would ask you now to start telling us about your experience as a participant in dealing whether it's with the RCMP, whether or not, victim services or not. And of course, we're most interested in hearing any recommendations you have that would help us going forward to make communities safer in the future.
Without the background as to who I am, I can't tell you about my experience.
Well, we have your background, so now
my experience is based on the fact that I was kicked out of my family when they died. And that Emily Tuck was my brother's daughter. That makes her my niece.
Okay, you've put that on the record. So what I'm trying to do is help you get to the next step, and I presume you have notes there.
Oh, I have notes,
that deal with your is based upon.
Okay, so I'm just.
Excuse me, just one second. Based upon materials that are before the commission to assist us in coming up with appropriate recommendations. Okay, please.
I hope that you people can live with yourselves.
And Ms. Long, just to help you, commentary like that is not helpful. Please. So just,
On Sunday morning, I woke up and I got a phone call from a mutual friend asking if I had heard from my brother, Aaron. I started calling and messaging Aaron on Facebook and I got no response. I don't have Twitter. I cannot describe the terror that went through me while I waited to hear back about what happened to my family. I called the RCMP to do a wellness check. I got a phone call from Corporal Rodney Peterson, who told me he had heard there was an evacuation center and he was going to find out if my family was there. Cobequid Court had been known in the command center since 2:50 a.m. The CIC boards for evacuation listed Cobequid Court, however, they never evacuated it. See foundational document, RCMP Command Post, Operational Communications Center and Command Decisions, COM 0057771.291. At the command post, boards were put up that listed addresses for possible evacuation on Portapique Beach Road, Orchard Beach Drive, Portapique Crescent, Cobequid Court, Bayview Court, Ferris Lane, and Coast Lane. Why is it, if there was no gunfire going on and other people could be evacuated, i.e. the Griffins, why would you leave Bayshore Road and Cobequid Court until the next afternoon, approximately 14 hours later? If you believe the gunman was deceased and there's a period of inactivity, why are you sending members home at 6:30 instead of evacuating residences? I heard on Sunday night there was a confirmation of dead bodies at my brother's house. So I called the RCMP and I was told that 3 bodies had been found, but they could not confirm who they were. To this day, I have not gotten a confirmation of dead bodies of who was at that house. After having gotten nowhere with the RCMP, I called the medical examiner's office and I was told that since they were on their way to her office, she assumed that they were dead. I remember asking Skipper Bent at one point, it might have been Monday. He asked for a photo of Aaron and he gave me the email address to send it to. In my state of mind, I typed in the wrong email address and the photo never made it to him. After that, he told people that I didn't send the photo and I was kept out of any communications that had to do with my family and treated like an outsider. He later testified that I set up the house cleaning for the murder scene of my family, but I was never even considered a family member, so I didn't have that kind of authority. Immediately, things didn't add up to me, and as time went by, they made less sense. The timeline of when events started is hard to pin down. Jamie Blair called 911 at 10:01 p.m., and we are told that the perpetrator left Portapique area at 10:48. During this 47-minute period, we are told that a single individual went to 7 locations and murdered 12 people and burned down 4 buildings. That gives 6.7 minutes per location, including travel time. Were the buildings set on fire before this person went to the Blair house? Ms. Banfield says that she was on a FaceTime call with friends, and the conversation that took place was the catalyst for the following events. However, there was no record found for this call that I have been made aware of, even though the FBI has searched. I've asked what time this call took place and am still waiting for an answer. This call would have been made using an app, so the time it took place should be easy to find. How did the RCMP rule out multiple shooters? According to Constable Dorrington in his MCC interview, he, quote, said, "We still have no clarity as to the number of shooters that are involved." What were the RCMP doing between that time and when the shooting started again the next morning? Why are there so many accounts of gunshots until much later that night? Why was my family not found until Sunday afternoon? In Constable Dorrington's notes, he has a note about a wellness check called in from Cheryl Blakey at 11:10 a.m. GPS shows Constable Dorrington stopped in front of the Bond residence for 30 seconds at 10:26, and my brother's house at 10:27 for another 30 seconds. COM 0058252. He was tasked by Sergeant O'Brien to search for bodies. How did Dorrington not see the bodies of my brother and Mr. Bond in the front doorway of these residences? Skipper Bent sent a text message to Aaron's phone at 1:15 p.m. on Sunday afternoon to see if they were all right, rather than going to check when Cobequid had been under an evacuation order for nearly 11 hours. Corporal Rodney Peterson says in his affidavit that he spoke to Rodney McDonald and Trent Lafferty on Sunday, and that the perpetrator had a sniper rifle and a .50 caliber rifle, neither of which seem to have been recovered. Where did this information come from? Where are these weapons? The East Hants radio logs show that Staff Sergeant Halliday says the perpetrator was a highly trained sharpshooter. Where did that information come from? Were there any inquiries by the MCC into these mentions of these sniper rifles or this perpetrator being highly trained? Aaron was found in the doorway of his home. In order to do the rest of what this person did, he would have had to walk over Aaron to get into the house to the other victims. There was no DNA from any of them found on him from Aaron. According to Aaron's autopsy, the first 2 shots didn't kill him. He would have been fighting the perpetrator for his life and to protect those girls. Were Aaron's hands bagged and checked for DNA? Aaron rarely smiled in photos because his teeth were in poor condition. Just prior to his death, Aaron had his teeth fixed, and you can see that in some of his more recent photos because he was smiling. But his autopsy says that his teeth were natural and in good condition. Greg Pinio and Ashley Wood were the paramedics who drove Ms. Banfield to the Colchester Hospital from the Great Village Fire Hall, but neither of them have given any statements or interviews. Why? There are over 400 pages of emails referred to in the foundational document between Ms. Banfield and the perpetrator. Why has only a small portion of these been released? Of those that have been released, they raise more questions than answers. In her affidavit, under threat of perjury and potential jail time, Constable Vicky Colford swore that she does not recall having a conversation with Katie McDonald about the Blueberry Field Road. Additionally, she swore the first time she recalls seeing a map with the Blueberry Field Road on it was days later at an RCMP conference. So how is her recollection so different from the radio transcripts? And has this been inquired into more by the Mass Casualty Commission? The photo that Nick Dorrington and Gabriel had of the perpetrator's license from when he pulled him over was being sent out to members upon request. Why wasn't it sent out to everybody immediately? Why did Dorrington not send this to the command center? In COM 0038-932, Staff Sergeant Vickers, who to my understanding was at the time the head of the MCU, has 3 separate entries into his notebook for Cobequid Court. At 4:48 on the 19th, he has an entry for 1, 46 Cobequid Court with 2 deceased males at the entry. 2, 41 Cobequid Court for a deceased male and 1 female, and a separate entry for 45 Cobequid Court with 3 more bodies. There is no RCMP or MCC interview with him and no member report for him. What does he mean that there are 3 more bodies at 45 Cobequid Court? Has the MCC followed up on this? This is further validated in Chief Superintendent Janice Gray's notes. She attached Crops Officer Chief Superintendent Leather, COM 005-1382. She has an entry on page 6 of her notes for 41 Cobequid Court with 2 victims, a female and a male, 46 Cobequid Court with 1 male, and subsequently at 6:40, 2 hours after the bodies were discovered, on page 7 of her notes, she has another entry for 45 Cobequid Court with possibly another 3 bodies. Underneath this entry, it appears she has a subsection listing 3 RCMP regimental numbers, which are 56169, which is Chad Morrison, 45161, which is Heidi Stevenson, and 44900, which is Inspector Daniel Ulmer. Why has she written this in her notebook? And has this been followed up on by the MCC? Why has Janice Gray not given testimony in front of the MCC? This leads me to the issues management team and H Strong 2. COM 0018505, the forensic report on page 7, crime scene report, states, Forensic Identification Services investigator Sergeant McKenna gains entry to the secured property at 45 Cobequid Court. The previous day, he had gone to 41 and 46 Cobequid Court. 45 sits in between these residences. Why does Sergeant McKenna return to 45 Cobequid Court when it isn't a crime scene? According to Janice Gray, COM 005-9587 on page 5, the interview with the MCC, John Robin was the liaison for H Strong and IMT after Gray. On page 66, Janice Gray says that John Robin was the head of the IMT and that his role in the inquiry was being responsible for preparing documents and reports that would be given to the MCC. He also decides what to share with them in addition to reporting back to the CNIP in Ottawa and Deputy Commissioner Brian Brennan, CNIP at the RCMP. Mike Butcher was an RCMP disclosure analyst, and John Robin, who was head of H Strong IMT, as well as overseeing disclosure to the RCMP, internal Hoyt investigation, the external ESDC labor investigation, and to the MCC. In Tim Mills' MCC testimony, he says, referring to the appointment of these 2 husbands of the Nova Scotia senior officers, that's not incompetence, quote, sorry, that's not incompetence putting them on the issues management team. You can't be that stupid. That's cover up. That's corruption. There's no 2 ways about it. This, in addition to his MCC statement, quote, "That's not even stupid, that's just corrupt. And I'm not talking money corruption, I'm talking power corruption. I've seen it. 2 sets of standards, you know. We'll investigate the general duty members or, you know, the rank and file. You're not touching an officer, commissioned officer. We're protected." What exactly was H Strong 2 IMT and what was their purpose? And most importantly, did their roles of disclosure liaison hinder or interfere with the MCC's mandate? Justice Cromwell has written many letters regarding the DOJ not being forthcoming with documents. How much more information are they not sharing with us? Why is the DOJ hiding so much from the families and the Canadian public? On March 17, 2021, the MCC and the DOJ entered into a clawback agreement. What are the details of this agreement? Why aren't they public? How does this impact the MCC and their work? And does this seem like transparency? Chief Superintendent Leather says that the DOJ told him to be reactive instead of proactive when talking about certain information. Is this standard practice? How many other witnesses were told this? How much information are we not being given because of this? There is no doubt that Heidi Stevenson was a hero, a real hero, and the kind of person who should be an RCMP officer. There is no question about that. But the RCMP had a parade for her on Monday, April the 20th, when my family was still laying dead in their house. Does that seem inappropriate to anybody else? Before this happened, I loved the RCMP. I took my daughter to see them when I saw them there, and I told her they were the real superheroes. If you need help, that's where you go. You find a cop, RCMP specifically. And now we're terrified of them. I see them, I cry. My daughter thinks they're going to kill her. I didn't teach her this. I struggle with the brain injury, which was in my previous thing, but I wasn't allowed to talk about it. So that's why I struggle with reading all the documents that are available, and I've read very few of them. I have been blessed with a very dear friend and a group of people who've been here with me since the beginning. They spend countless hours every single day reading and comparing documents and using their little gray cells to help me understand what's going on. And some people have called us conspiracy theories, but if there weren't so many gaping holes, inconsistencies, and conflict of interest in this story, we wouldn't have to speculate about what really happened. Constable Wiley rightly pointed out the other day that the transcripts are so disjointed and barely comprehensible that he hardly recognized his own statement. And statements from many important witnesses are not available at all. After more than 2 years and millions of dollars, there are still so many holes in this story and countless unanswered questions. How can any of us be expected to make recommendations when we don't even know what happened? More importantly, how can the family begin to grieve when we don't know what happened to our loved ones? There's so much information hidden behind black ink and red tape that the job cannot be done. As far as I can tell, the commission has failed in its mission to find out what happened. Where is all the dash cam video and audio footage? Why hasn't all the GPS data been disclosed? During the MCC, we have been told that unmarked RCMP cars don't have a GPS. But if this is so, why does Sergeant Bernard's unmarked baby blue Taurus have a GPS? Where is Brown and Melanson's GPS? Why hasn't every single phone, personal and/or professional, been run through Celebrate, and this information being disclosed, whether they be RCMP member, witnesses, or victims? If an independent commission exists, like a royal commission, where there appears to be less government interference, that's what we need. And if the behavior of the RCMP during this ordeal is what we can expect if we face another crisis like this, we should think about replacing them with local police. Chief McNeil is the kind of guy we can put our trust in. He's accountable, and he's very connected to the community. The model he follows would serve Nova Scotia much better than what we have with the RCMP. Chief McNeil was able to implement all the recommendations in his Truro Police Department that the RCMP didn't. Recommendations are not going to be enough here. We have history of recommendations being made and nobody even reading them, never mind implementing them and using them on the job. So these should be mandates. They should not be recommendations. This stuff should be mandated if you want to work for the RCMP. Within days of this tragedy, the government tried to use this horrific crime to help push the gun ban that they had wanted for years. This perpetrator had no legally obtained guns. Criminals, by definition, don't care about the law, so a gun ban is only going to make law-abiding citizens more vulnerable to violent criminals. There are numerous lessons that have come from this loss of life, and one of them is that the police don't always show up when you need them, especially in rural areas. So we must be able to protect ourselves. If Aaron had a gun that night, this tragedy might have stopped at his house, and all these other people, I wouldn't know them. And you people are amazing, but I'd rather that I didn't have to know you because of this. Let's remember why we're here. 23 people were murdered and their families want to know what happened. Since the beginning, the families have asked for all 23 victims to be recognized by the government, and they, the media, and the MCC all insist on saying 22. I bet that Kristen and Nick Beaton think their baby counts as a person. In my opinion, the MCC has been derailed by various special interest groups, and though they have very valid concerns, I struggle to see the remotest connection to the events that took the lives of our loved ones. We have all patiently waited and listened to see when and how this process was going to provide us with answers, and we are still waiting. Time has run out. Thank you. God bless 23.
Thank you, Ms. Lund.
So thank you, participants, and your council for your submissions. We'll, of course, consider them carefully, as we always do. Tomorrow, we'll continue to hear submissions from participants, and we do welcome and encourage submissions from members of the public with your ideas for change. On our website, we invite everyone to submit recommendations you'd like us to consider. There's more information online, including a discussion guide to help have conversations with your networks and to share your suggestions for change by introducing issues analyzed by the Commission and asking questions to help you think about potential recommendations. We're accepting your suggestions for change until the end of the month. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you here tomorrow.
Thank you. The proceedings are adjourned until tomorrow, September the 21st, 2022 at 9:30 a.m.